This is Hannibal coming at you from freezing cold Ottawa, Canada, with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. There's a bunch I didn't find interested in this week's newsletter, but a bunch that I did. So if you want to get the whole story, get the whole newsletter. The big news, well, not big news, but the one that was all in the news this week, I guess because of the election, is Jake Hagar, aka Jack Swagger, said that Tony Khan is a communist. He alleged this because I guess in Jake's opinion, he may have got fired because he's a Trump supporter. I guess Tony Khan was not a fan of Jake Hager's public Trump support. But let's be honest here. What the hell did Jake Hager ever do in AEW other than collect a check for I don't know if it was 3 years or 5 years. All I remember of him is they gave him a gimmick at one point where he was wearing a purple toque, and his gimmick was that he liked the toque. So could they have done more with him? Yes. Is he a lot better than a lot of guys they have under contract? Yes. Is there guys under contract that work even less than him? Yes. But it is funny. I will say this. Mark Henry bashes Tony Khan a lot. He did absolutely nothing in AEW. And Jake Hager, who did an interview just before he was with AEW, and by the way, I like Jake Hager. I knew him a little bit in Deep South Wrestling, saying that Tony Khan was cool and he smoked weed with the boys. So I don't know if this was just to get in the news or not. Well, I don't doubt that Tony Khan may not like Trump. It might be really on the Democratic side. I have no doubt about that. I don't think he would be that vengeful. Would a guy that he's thinking of firing, who is a big Trump supporter, would that be what puts him over the line of not re-signing him? Possibly, yeah. But Jake Hager, I couldn't tell you one match he had in AEW. And I'm sure he made hundreds of thousands of dollars there. Let's get into the WWE news. I'll go back to AEW. Dave Meltzer speculates, speaking of Trump, that the federal investigation into Vince McMahon, which, let's be honest, it's been going on a while now under the Biden administration. Dave Meltzer speculates, since Trump is so in with the McMahon family, that probably nothing will go anywhere with this investigation. I don't know if it's human trafficking allegations or what, but let's be honest here, and I think the Sandman said it. I mean, I don't think Vince McMahon is a pimp. He may have done some stuff that he's settled lawsuits over. Might not be the best guy, but let's be honest here. He's making way more money from other sources and just pimping girls. But anyways, Dave Meltzer speculates that the federal investigation likely will probably go nowhere. Even more now that Trump is back in charge of the country. Cody Rhodes in a champion versus champion match pinned Gunther clean in the men's crown jewel match. Then they shook hands, which I'm really not a fan of heels shaking hands and sportsmanship in professional wrestling. If you're watching pro wrestling to see sportsmanship, that's bizarre. Sportsmanship in a fake sport. But anyways, the second title to me now means even less, having a clean pin in this title versus title match. I don't know why they insist on calling it a world title. This is just even more well, I do know why, because SmackDown, the network that carried SmackDown, Fox, wanted their own champion. Maybe they'll get rid of it with Netflix, but I think it might not be. I don't know how exactly it's going to work in the US. I know in Canada everything's going to Netflix, but I'm sick of this 2 world champion stuff, particularly now that the main world champion with the title that everyone thought was the main world title beat clean the second world champion. Just confirms it even more that that belt is more of an intercontinental title. And by the way, it looks like it's going to be Gunther against Goldberg. Gunther, who's now lost to Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes in recent victories. Please do not have Goldberg job to this skinny guy. I'm not saying he doesn't have hard chops, but he's just so thin and frail looking. Please, when Goldberg has his retirement match, I hear likely at the Royal Rumble against Gunther, can this just please be a typical Goldberg squash? Because that would make me pop. Because a guy with his skinny legs is Gunther, I just couldn't take seriously against a jack guy like Goldberg, who would literally destroy him in 30 seconds in a real fight. Which, by the way, I am going to watch that match. I can't remember the last match I've actually been interested to see in wrestling, but I am interested to see that one. And that's just my taste. I'm not saying that there hasn't been anything good, but for my taste, I can't remember the last match I've actually wanted to see in pro wrestling. Okay, let me get back to it. Elimination Chamber at the former Toronto Skydome, now known as Rogers Center, is gonna host the Elimination Chamber in March 2025. I was just saying last night, WWE, other than the Vancouver Survivor Series coming up, and I think they might be doing TV tapings around there, there's nothing announced for Canada, which is unusual. There's always at least something coming up in Canada. And one of the reasons could be they're not doing house shows anymore, other than in like Europe or their Christmas tour. But even their Christmas tour usually comes to Toronto. So maybe this is why they don't want to do anything. So they, in hopes that people will come to the Skydome to fill it up for Elimination Chamber. To me, I mean, they did use blood in the CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre match recently. To me, an Elimination Chamber match without blood is just nothing. It's like having a War Games match without blood. It's just not. To me, I don't know if that could fill up a Skydome, honestly. But maybe if they're not coming to Canada, maybe this is a good plan. For so long, or Ontario, they're just going to expect everyone's going to be so desperate to see WWE live. And this could be true. They are very smart that they're all just going to go to this Elimination Chamber in the Skydome. Because to me, I mean, that's not necessarily. Maybe it could fill it in Australia where they hardly have wrestling, which, by the way, I did check AEW's ticket sales for their Australia Stadium show. There's tons of open seats. I don't think they're going to have anywhere near a full stadium for Australia. I don't think they'll be lucky if they get, I don't know. Things could change, but they'll be very lucky if they can get close to half full for that stadium, the way things are looking from what I was looking at that seating chart. But anyways, I just think that's very adventurous to want to do Elimination Chamber in a stadium. WWE cut Tegan Knox, Indy Hartwell, and Tom Pestock, aka Baron Corbin, last week. Corbin was not a wrestler prior to WWE. They signed him out of football based on his size. He had a good 12-year run, made a lot of money with them. It's unknown whether he's going to continue in wrestling or not. I guess it just depends on who offers. You would think Impact, I mean, they pay nothing, but you would think Impact would probably offer him something. I don't know if AEW would or not, because he wasn't quote unquote hot. But they have signed other wrestlers that were not hot at all, the contracts. As I was just mentioning last night, that Matt Menard team with whoever his friend is, they were signed after being released by WWE, and they've done nothing with them. and they're collecting paychecks. And Baron Corbin was more known than them. So, and they don't seem to have a problem hiring people, even though they don't really need anyone else, and just having guys sit at home to get paid. So you could, I don't, under the right circumstances, I'm sure we could see Baron Corbin in AEW, but I don't think that they're going to be like making him any huge offers or anything like that. But I'm sure they would at least talk to him if he wanted a meeting with them. In other news, as I said, they're not doing house shows in WWE, but they are doing a massive European tour all over Europe, March 14th to March 31st, including 6 television tapings. Raw and SmackDown were in Saudi Arabia, so they don't have any numbers released, but those are paid shows, so the attendance doesn't even matter. To get $50 million for the pay-per-views, who knows how much they got for Raw and SmackDown. I'm sure it was a lot of money. Apparently, the shows were not sold out. The pay-per-view was, but the Raw and SmackDown weren't. The ECW NXT tapings that destroyed AEW in the ratings this week, head-to-head Dynamite versus NXT. It was on Wednesday night, had a sellout of 800. AEW hit a couple new record lows. Last week, Rampage only did 172,000 viewers, 0.05 rating, the lowest rating for any AEW show ever. Of course, Rampage is being canceled. They seem to have just given up on it, even though they're paying so many people millions of dollars. They don't want to use them on every show because apparently, and this is his choice, Tony Khan does not like making people work more than once a week. I'm not saying that's great for the wrestlers. That's very nice of him. That's all I'm going to say about that. I have nothing against him. Seems like an amazing guy to work for. But even if my dad had billions and billions, I would make people work a little bit more for their money, and I would try to if I had a show that was getting canceled, I would try and at least make it go out with a bang to make the network maybe think twice of it and start loading up that show. But that's just my opinion. If I'm paying for people, I'll use them. Dynamite got tied its second lowest rating in history and set the record for its lowest rating ever in its regular time slot with no competition, 0.16 for their flagship Dynamite show. And here's something I find funny, okay? And by the way, I'm neutral. I'm not getting hired by any of these companies. I only watch stuff on YouTube. A lot of people say, oh, you hate AEW, you love WWE. No, I'm absolutely neutral. I'm not. I said I want to watch Gunther against Goldberg. I watched the Viking Raiders against the New Day when it was on in the gym Monday. I hated it, but I don't deny some people like it. To me, it looked too choreographed. It looked just like people performing a dance. So I'm not neutral. But here's a story that I find funny. AEW has announced that Sports Video Group is revamping AEW live event production for 2025, and they want to, quote, create a nice split between live events and TV shows, making the live experience more special. Let me just tell you guys, as someone that's been to a live event when they were in Ottawa this year for their debut show, about 8 of the stars that were on the poster didn't show up to the show. And the taping was like 5 hours long. Everybody left for Rampage, and the show started 15 minutes late. Like the first 15 minutes of the show was just stuff on the video screen. And then they wanted people to stay after Collision to watch No Names and Ring of Honor, which most people like me left. There was a huge file of people leaving after Collision. Why don't you make the shows shorter? Have the people on the posters show up. That would be good if you want to help make the shows better. Actually, have the people that you put on the posters show up on the shows. That would be the best thing you could do, rather than making the live experience more unique. That's not your problem. It's false advertising and making the shows so long that they paper so much of their tickets, so people that don't actually buy tickets come to make the arenas look more full. When they go to a show and they're not necessarily wrestling fans, they're just going because it's free, they don't want to watch 5 hours. After 3 hours, most people just want to go home, unless you're a super fan. Like, make the shows more crisp and clean. And if you have a lot to tape, don't make the first 15 minutes just showing a video package. Or Springfield, Massachusetts, the one that Jack Kilby went to. They had the tables, ladders, and chairs match before the Collision taping, which was the Ring of Honor main event. And then they had just the regular matches after the Collision taping. Why not say before the Collision taping that there's going to be a TLC match to finish off the show? Make sure you don't miss it. Then you can watch the match. Everyone will stay to watch the match with the blood and guts at the end. Anyways, I'm sorry. This just seems to be basic stuff for me. And again, I think it's great that people are making so much money there. I just want to see them do better, which is why I say this stuff. For instance, the AEW and Ring of Honor tapings in Collision in Philadelphia, one of the best wrestling cities in the world, November 2nd, only had 3,100 fans, including the paper tickets. Davey Boy Smith Jr., guy I like a lot, won the All Japan Wrestling Triple Crown Championship on November 4th before 789 fans in Sapporo, Japan. UFC Fight Night in Edmonton, Alberta, in an arena I've wrestled in before, had 16,349 fans last weekend. Someone liked NXT Wednesday. I have not seen anything but the RVD segments. Twin Cities Oxygen can't even make fun of or watch AEW anymore. I mean, I can't even remember I think the last thing I looked up was Rico's debut. I mean, there's nothing that's interested me at all. Yes. Yeah, I mean, here's what I would do. Instead of begging people to stay for Ring of Honor, they tape like Collision and Dynamite every week, usually in separate arenas. Tape half. First of all, you don't even need Ring of Honor. It just waters down your product. But if you really want Ring of Honor, tape half of now. Have the show start at 7:30. Tape 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Or if I don't know when Collision starts, 8 or 9 o'clock. Have the first half hour Ring of Honor matches on each show. So then you have your hour show. Or if Ring of Honor is 2 hours, have the first hour Ring of Honor, the last 2 hours Dynamite or Collision. That's 3 hours, bang, bang, bang. Nobody wants to sit there and watch a 15-minute video package at the time a show is supposed to start. People get restless. Anyways. By the way, I am going to be interviewing the Berserker John Nord next week. Yes, people say I look like Tyson Fury. I'll take that as a compliment. I actually get stopped and told that sometimes as well. Since he's the greatest boxer right now, in my opinion, I'll have to agree with that. Have a great weekend. Please give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe. I'm almost at 400,000. Help me get to 400,000. Accidentally making the devil sign there.